On this week's Carrier Wrap, we speak with MVNO DataZoom on how it targets the enterprise market and differentiates itself against traditional telecom operators. All right, well, thanks for joining us on this week's Carrier Wrap. I'm your host, Dan Meyer, Editor-in-Chief here at RCR Wireless News. And this week, we're joined by Rob Chamberlain, who's the co-founder and Chief Revenue Officer at DataZoom, to talk a bit about the MVNO and enterprise space. So, hey, Rob, thanks for joining us this week. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. My pleasure to be here, Dan.
Very good. Let me start off with, for those who don't know much about DataZoom, can you give maybe a little overview of the company, kind of, what was behind the founding of the company, maybe current operations, maybe the business model too behind DataZoom?
Absolutely. So DataZoom, the way we describe ourselves, is a business or enterprise MVNO, mobile virtual network operator. Probably a lot of your readers and watchers of this program certainly are familiar with the acronym. And we're kind of in a unique space. We have multiple carrier partners. We partner with 3 of the largest 4 U.S. wireless carriers. And really, we give our mid-market and enterprise customers and our channel partners, we feel, access to the wireless networks in a easier, better format than maybe the carriers do directly on the retail side.
Got it. And I guess behind the founding for the company, obviously the enterprise space has always been a big target for the wireless industry, and they have very, different incarnations been able to tackle it, or maybe not tackle it as well. I guess what was the founding behind the company for you guys?
Yeah, well, I think a couple things. First of all, as we look at the wireless environment today, you and I think, probably started, at a similar point in the industry back in the 90s, and as you know, there was a lot of revenue going around, and it was a huge land grab, and so the carriers really ramped up those sales and support operations quite dramatically. I think what we've seen over the course of the last 3 to 5 years is some margin compression, some increased competition, and obviously saturation of the market. Mm-hmm. So I think that opens up an opportunity for kind of specialty carriers like DataZoom to kind of come in and earn market share and provide some value, not only to the customers, but to the clients. I think the second thing we saw when we started the company is we predicted that kind of equipment and service would decouple, as it had internationally for quite some time. So we came in with no contracts, no termination fees, sort of that as part of our core value proposition, figuring that ultimately customers would see there was a better deal to be had by purchasing wireless connectivity directly without having the equipment as part of that equation. Mm-hmm. And lastly, data-only focus was certainly, very important. DataZoom is, as the name implies, we're a data-only, provider. And as you know, Dan, that's where all the growth is in the industry. So we felt like, and we're not quite there yet, but we felt like voice and SMS would really be looked at as simply apps. Mm-hmm. And all the value in mobility would come from, the wireless data connectivity. And we're starting to certainly see that in the marketplace. You look at the retail carriers and how they're marketing plans, and it's all about how many gigs and what the price is.
Yeah, well, interesting. Yeah, I guess, is there a bit of a challenge in going to an enterprise customer with a strict data option? I mean, it does seem like that, while voice and text are perhaps more commoditized these days, they are still kind of a somewhat important part of the market. I guess as you go to these enterprise customers, what's, I guess, your take on kind of going to them with a strict data product, I guess?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, the BYOD phenomena has certainly helped us in kind of a data-centric approach, right? Mm-hmm. I think back in the day, you'll remember, Apple, I think, really drove a lot of that in the enterprise, right? Where folks wanted to bring in their iPhone, even if their IT department didn't support it back then. And that's certainly been a big driver of the BYOD phenomena. But so what we're seeing in enterprise is more kind of data-centric devices, tablets, ruggedized tablets, even PCs, scanners, things like that are specifically used for a business purpose that the business is paying for. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes, the voice plans are sort of handled through expense reimbursement or other processes. So that's a big driver, certainly. The second thing we've done to sort of kind of mitigate that issue is we've really embraced a channel strategy over the course of the last 12 to 18 months, where we are really aligned with value-added resellers, IT resellers, kind of in that IT ecosystem, mm-hmm. where they're kind of helping customers with large deployments of either software licenses, hardware, or some combination thereof. And so DataZoom's a perfect partner in those kind of scenarios.
Makes sense. And so obviously you guys are very focused on a specific market, not really going after kind of that broader base. And obviously, again, going after the enterprise market as opposed to the broader consumer market. That seems to be kind of, again, showing you guys are pretty focused on a specific market. And even within that market, a specific service, it seems like targeting that market then, which again, as we've seen in the past, the MVNO market, a lot of operators came into the space and kind of try to go very wide with their offerings. It seems like you guys, perhaps, obviously, with your experience in the industry, saw that happen and probably witnessed the fact that maybe it might be a better idea to not go quite so wide with your offering.
No question, and I think our operator partners really appreciate that fact. Yeah. We're not trying to be everything to everybody. I think what we do quite well, and we go very deep with it. But I think that's important to any business success. Is you can't be all things to all people, especially when you're a relatively young company, sort of in startup mode. So I think that served us well. What we do for our customers, I think we do better than anybody. If you want to connect devices to the mobile internet, we would argue that our value proposition there and what we provide to the customer, both in terms of the connectivity, the platform, and then also the customer service, once they're on board, is really second to none.
So Rob, I guess, can you give a little insight in, I guess, maybe any sort of challenge when it comes to offering a data service, a cellular data service to enterprises that you're having to, I guess, buy from a traditional carrier and then resell it? I know in the past, that's always been a bit of a sticking point for MVNOs is, the ability to kind of make some sort of a business case on trying to resell services against companies that, I guess have perhaps a lower overhead in terms of the fact that they own the network. But I guess, a lot of MVNOs run a pretty lean ship as well. So I guess what's maybe a challenge for you guys in terms of, I guess, making that part of the business model work for you guys?
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting question, and I think it's important from our perspective to be really candid with your carrier partners about kind of what your go-to-market is, and how your services are additive to their kind of regular offering that's in the marketplace today. So I think as long as the carriers see that it's not simply kind of a pricing exercise, but that in fact there's this value stack there, and the client kind of perceives more value from the network provider because of their affiliation with DataZoom, it's a win for everybody.
Interesting. I guess, do the operators have they become more open to these kind of agreements? Because it does seem like there's a bit of a roller coaster in the past about how operators have approached their MVNO partners. Some operators obviously a little more friendly, it seems, others not quite so much. And even that's kind of up and down a bit as well, depending on the carrier. Does it seem like today, or at least over the past couple of years, it's been a little more of a cooperation with the operators as opposed to going into them and them seeming to view you guys as a rival?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that MVNOs generally are supported by the carriers because they're bringing subscribers that the carriers wouldn't otherwise obtain on their own, right? Whether back in the day it's a Virgin Mobile and they're going after a different demographic with a different credit history than maybe the carrier would directly. That worked out great for everybody, and was a huge win for the MVNO kind of industry. I think what we're doing is certainly unique because of the B2B focus and kind of our mid-market and enterprise, target market. I think what the carriers see, Dan, and what we're doing that is a little bit different is I think they have embraced MVNOs in the space a little bit more than they did previously. And because of our focus that you were talking about earlier, I think we're doing things that, one, they can't do on their own, but importantly, it's not necessarily their bread and butter. Going after kind of data-centric devices tends to be lower ARPU. It's tends to be non-subsidized devices now, both by us, but certainly within the carrier environment. That's business that they maybe are not as aggressive on kind of going out and getting on their own. You're certainly not going to have an enterprise sales rep that's selling $15 or $20 tablet plans, right? They want the solution sale, as is evidenced by Verizon's acquisition yesterday of Fleetmatics, or they want a smartphone $65 to $70 kind of all-in ARPU. That's the interesting business, I think, for the carrier direct teams.
Makes sense. And obviously, too, it does seem like that the enterprise space has grown quite a bit, and it seems to kind of be expanding in different models as well. I mean, IoT and things like that are really kind of changing what's happening out there. And it seems like, I'm guessing, at least for you guys, that's opening up some new opportunities, maybe some new revenue streams for you guys as well. And again, these seem to be markets that are so new that maybe the bigger operators aren't quite ready to tackle those quite yet. So it does seem like the opportunity seems to be there for companies maybe a little more focused on the space, it seems.
Yeah, and our market position is a little bit different when you talk about IoT. We're certainly what I'd consider to be on the periphery of IoT.
Okay.
A lot of the IoT devices, as you know, are sensors or other sort of non-traditional wireless devices where you might get a meg or 5 or 10 per month. We tend to be more gigs, not megs. And our pricing plans start at about 500 megs and go up to 30 gigs per device per month. So the use cases for data zoom tend to be kind of the higher bandwidth applications.
Okay.
Video applications, obviously, as you know, video is driving a lot of the consumption of mobile data today. We fit in quite well there. So some of our partners have, apps that are, training apps, let's say that provide training for workers over tablets, as an example. That's a great use case for data zoom. A sensor that's 5 megs a month, not so much. But wearables is another space that we're seeing. There's early adoption certainly in the enterprise, but there is a lot coming there. So video-based apps, wearables, and let's say telematics, as telematics moves into more targeting the mobile worker with tablets, that's also a space we're starting to see some nice traction.
That's interesting. Yeah. Well, it's good to also always talk to somebody who understands that the fact that IoT is not just everything. I do tend to talk to quite a few people who, when you say IoT, that I like to lump everything in there. So yeah, obviously it's going to be a very diverse market out there. That's for sure. I guess, is there a bit of a challenge in working with operators with data? Because it does seem like when it comes to video and large data consumption, operators are still a bit I'm not scared of it, but they tend to take a very conservative approach. They don't want to, they offer some unlimited data plans, but they're little, they do have caps on those, and they tend to kind of charge quite a bit when it comes to these larger data buckets. I guess, is it a challenge at all for you guys to go to an enterprise who might need a large amount of data per month and be able to kind of get that data from the carrier at a reasonable price that you can then resell to an enterprise?
Yeah, I think two things there. I mean, you're certainly right about the way the carriers would historically look at those type of devices. One, we take on a little bit of that risk because we're really, we're buying on a wholesale basis through the carriers, and then we're managing kind of the overage or breakage within our pool of data. So I think on some level it mitigates the risk for the carrier. But where I've seen more of a challenge for when I'm talking to engineering representatives within the carriers, I think they have more of a challenge, Dan, with the fixed device. Let's say it's a wireless router that really should be wireless backup, but maybe it's used as a primary, where they're burning a lot of gigs per month, and it's the same tower. That's more problematic than a mobile device in our experience.
Interesting. So as long as your customers keep moving around, it keeps everybody happy.
That's right.
Very important, very important. And I'm guessing too that I guess the evolution of networks has also helped as well. I mean, obviously in the old 3G world, data was, kind of still in the early stages where people were starting to use it. It seems like with the move to LTE, it's definitely ramped up the usability of mobile data. And I guess, again, if we move towards whatever the next generation is going to be, it seems like that the market for you guys, I'm guessing, has become a little easier to kind of tap into kind of these bigger data usage models that enterprises are looking to tap into.
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, you've seen all the statistics. I think the Cisco's VNI report is the most widely quoted report as it comes to mobile data, but the metrics are off the chart, and we really feel like we are where the market is going. So, we're even seeing kind of traditional, data-centric devices that are very low usage, ruggedized tablets from, a Honeywell or a Motion or Explorer, companies like that. There's more and more apps being deployed on those kind of devices. And so what might have historically been a 100 meg or 200 meg usage in a month is now a gig or more. So yeah, I mean, everything is kind of moving upstream. And, the nice thing is that's sort of where we sit. So it's been quite successful, and we think that the demand's only going to increase from here.
Makes sense. I'm guessing then too, it sounds like you guys have seen kind of that same sort of hockey stick curve when it comes to data usage on your over your service. I know operators talk about that all the time. The fact that over the past couple of years, usage has gone up, thousands of percentage points. I'm guessing you guys are seeing probably pretty similar types of growth from your own customers in terms of data usage as well.
We absolutely have. Yeah, our numbers are up quite substantially. I think for us, more importantly, and I mentioned, us deploying a channel strategy maybe 12, 13 months ago. What we're seeing now is a lot of our IT resellers are understanding if they are providing services to their customer every month, they're providing hardware to their customer on a transaction, whether it's iPads or PCs or some other sort of connected devices. The only piece of the value chain that they haven't monetized historically, or it's been very challenging to do so, has been the mobile connection. And so what's been happening over the course of the last year is we've educated the marketplace and the channel specifically. We've seen a huge increase in usage, but also adoption through the channel, which has been important for us.
Interesting. So it seems like those channels are starting to kind of get the importance of having mobile data connectivity as part of their overall package going into an enterprise as well then.
No question. A lot of these companies, are providing monthly services where they're maybe handling MDM and some other components of mobility. They just haven't handled the connectivity. So we're a perfect partner to kind of slot in there. We're aligned with one of the largest distributors, IT distributors in the country, and we're in the process of onboarding a second one. So we feel like that marketplace is certainly going to be very good for us and very important for our long-term growth.
Got it. Do you guys get a lot of maybe pushback in terms of, you get enterprises to say, hey, we've got Wi-Fi in our buildings, most of our employees can find Wi-Fi somewhere.
Yeah.
I know people seem to assume Wi-Fi is everywhere. I think we all really know it's not, but still, just this assumption that you can get it anywhere. Is there, I guess, any sort of pushback or challenge in trying to, get over that hump in terms of sales to enterprises?
Well, yeah. Certainly, I think the natural IT's maybe natural inclination to say, "Oh, we're all set. We're good." The challenge with Wi-Fi, obviously, there's security issues, there's bandwidth, capacity issues. We actually just did a large implementation with a partner of ours to one of the largest grocery chains in the U.S. Actually, one of the largest grocery chains in the world, but a very large store count in the U.S. We're doing a trial with this partner of 200 or 300 iPads. So you would think that would be kind of an ideal use case for Wi-Fi, right? These are being used inside retail locations. But the fact of the matter is, both the partner and the customer found it was easier to leverage 4G LTE than the Wi-Fi. And probably from a deployment perspective, it's a lot, it's more turnkey.
Yeah.
You don't have to go through a Wi-Fi, coverage analysis and capacity analysis and get IT on board. So I think from a deployment perspective, it was a lot easier to just say, let's just go with DataZoom and we can launch this in days, not months or years.
Interesting. Very interesting. Well, I guess maybe looking forward a bit, what are some of the, I don't want to say challenges, but what are you guys looking for in terms of maybe the evolution of the market for you guys in terms of, going after enterprises or working with carriers, over the next 12 months or so? What do you see as maybe being a big challenge or maybe something you guys are looking to tackle, moving forward here?
Yeah, well, I think one of the interesting things that's coming is kind of VoLTE, voice over LTE, and maybe what that's going to look like. So I think as that service becomes more commercially viable, and certainly you see SMBs, I think, adopting that now, but as that kind of goes upstream into mid-market and enterprise, I think that's really interesting for us because then we are where we thought we'd be 5 years ago, where voice really becomes an app. Yeah. Then the issue is, well, certainly our carrier partners don't want to subsidize smartphones retailing for $700 and only get a data connection on that. So that needs to be sorted out. But I think that technology and some of the voice capabilities that coming out in apps like Slack and others really makes our model a little bit more compelling, potentially long term.
That's a great point. I think, obviously operators would like to move as much traffic as they can to their data networks, and so they can reform that spectrum for LTE. But yeah, you're right. VoLTE is going to be an interesting technology. I know we've been talking about it on the show for quite some time, and it seems like it's one of those technologies that maybe a little slower to market than maybe people thought. But again, it's a very complicated technology, but it is coming online. And yeah, it does seem like a great add-on, I guess, for what you guys are offering out there. It could be a good way to kind of offer that as well, a voice component as well to your service. And again, just group it all together as data anyway. So should be interesting to watch how that plays out.
Yes, absolutely.
Very good, very good. Now, Rob, another question, I guess, another topic that's kind of come along recently is, the device market has changed a lot over the past 10, 15 years. I mean, it used to be, you bought a device and it was locked to a certain carrier, and that's just the way it was. Over the past several years, it seems like devices now become much more open in the market. I mean, there's open SIMs now. Most devices work across pretty much all carriers, work around the world for the most part. Put a new SIM card in and it'll work with almost anybody. I guess how has that changed your and DataZoom's ability to kind of compete in the market nowadays?
Yeah, I think with both Google, through their Nexus line, and also obviously with Apple, they're changing the dynamic with the carriers. And yeah, to your point, back in the day, it used to be the carriers were the distribution, right? So the hardware manufacturers went to the carriers, asked them how many, and you rolled up your forecast and away you went. Certainly, I think in today's world and where I think things are going with these carrier agnostic devices, we really feel like a carrier agnostic carrier, as it were, right? A multi-connection carrier like DataZoom becomes more compelling in that carrier agnostic world of hardware. Because if you're an enterprise and you have a new Apple iPad, you can work with us quite easily, across multiple carriers and change it on the fly if you need to do so.
Yeah, that makes sense. Obviously, with you guys working with multiple carriers, that kind of fills in a lot of the coverage issues that a lot of maybe more carrier-specific MVNOs kind of run into, and the fact that they can't offer services in some markets because of coverage issues. You guys' ability to work with multiple carriers, I'm guessing, allows you to be able to, again, expand your own reach when it comes to enterprises, wherever they need to be for the most part.
Well, 100%. And I think part of the reason we focused on this mid-market and enterprise base is, I believe, once you get 500 lines or more, what tends to happen is, you kind of need an A and a B carrier, right? As good as carrier A might be in your geography, there's going to be some subset of your population in an enterprise that needs a different carrier.
Yeah.
So as you kind of move up the chain in terms of, getting towards enterprise, the multi-carrier connectivity becomes, a significant advantage.
Yeah.
And yeah, to your point, if you could get everything kind of in one wholesale package, with great pricing and great terms, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and not to keep going around the Google name there, but again, that's something that they've kind of focused on, the fact that they don't just work with one operator, they work with multiple operators, and that seems like that's kind of been key for them to be able to grow. So it does seem like, again, being able to have an A and a B and even a C carrier in some instances, especially for enterprises who, they do have, workforces that tend to move around quite a bit. You don't want to strand them somewhere without coverage. So that's a pretty important part of the process as well.
Yeah, and I think the Google play is really more of a pricing play, right? Between the Wi-Fi and the two carriers they've selected, which obviously is a viable model. And I think it's really interesting for the consumer and maybe for an SMB. The reality is, I think as you get above maybe 20 or 30 person company, I doubt that's going to be a serious consideration. That's not really the market they're going after today. Yeah. But yeah, whether it's a pricing play, which I think it might be, sort of in fees case, or if it's a connectivity and performance, as it is in DataZoom's case, I think, there's certainly reasons why a multi-carrier solution is the right one in the market today. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, they're definitely going after more the consumer play and more of a voice and text messaging play as well and stuff. And the data is just part of that as well, but not a big focus for them. So yeah, that makes sense. Well, hey, that sounds good. Thanks so much for the time.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks for watching this week's show, and make sure to check out our next carrier app when we speak with Comtel on the opportunities in the sponsored data market. Thanks for watching.